What's going on, everybody? Good late morning. Hope you guys are doing well. And in case you guys don't remember what happened a couple of hours ago, I uploaded a video talking about the 2025 NFL Draft on offense. I wanted to talk about the positions that I think are good, the ones that are maybe a little more average, and the ones that are maybe bad. And it's good to kind of understand where you're strong in comparison to the draft and where you're weak in comparison to the draft. So if you have a need on the team, you hope that the draft coincides with that. And if it doesn't, you might need a backup plan. Remember, free agency is before the draft. A vast majority of free agents will be signed before the draft starts. So the Seahawks are going to have to look at this and go, hey, we have a need at X position, and the draft sucks at that position. We got to go find something in free agency. We got to figure out something that isn't the draft because the draft is no good. So there is going to be a little bit of searching for the things that link well with the Seahawks' needs and what is available to them. And they're going to have to look at the things that link well with their needs and pursue those if they want value. And if they don't do that, then they're going to be reaching, and we all know how that can go. So now we're doing the defense. Let's do the defense here. Honestly, I think the Seahawks are going into 2025 without a ton of needs defensively, but there is going to be some work that needs to be done. So let's start on the defensive line here, and there's really two considerations. You have the nose tackle, the one tech, the zero tech, the nose guard, whatever you want to call them. Then you have your three tech slash 4i, basically your defensive tackle type. So nose tackle, I mean, it's better than usual, I think. You've got two legitimate first round guys that play a lot of nose tackle snaps in Grant and Walker. And then you can find a series of other legitimate nose tackle types throughout the rest of the draft. Collins is one of them. Stackhouse is another one. Caldwell. I think FSU has one. There's going to be probably about 5 or 6 legitimate nose tackle guys in the draft, I'd say. So I'm going to say that's a little bit better than normal, which is nice because the Seahawks could use a nose tackle. They're probably not going to have much of anything going into this offseason. Maybe they can keep Jarran Reed, but Jarran Reed's an older guy. He's also undersized. You might want something a little bigger. And then you have the other side of it, which is basically everything else. Your three techs, your defensive tackles, 4i guys. It's not bad. It's not bad. I don't think it's as good as some previous years. Like, there's no Jalen Carter here. It's a little bit more in line with like last year's defensive line draft, where you had Byron Murphy was the number one guy, and he was good, but there was nothing generational there. It's kind of like you could go back to the 2023 draft. You take out Jalen Carter, and I think that this is kind of similar to what you'd get. Like, Mason Graham is going to be a really high pick. He's going to be a top 10 pick, I'm sure. Michigan guy. But, you know, he's no Jalen Carter. He's more Khalid Cansey if you're just comparing on quality. He's more Byron Murphy. So he's good. It works, but there's nothing generational here. And there's good depth. And I'll say this. Don't rule out that position being needy. The Seahawks have Leonard Williams. They have Byron Murphy. What else do they really have? Jarran Reed's a free agent. Roy Robertson Harris is almost certainly going to be gone because of money. And Mike Morris, clearly they don't see anything with him. He doesn't even play anymore. So you really don't have anything else. The good news is you can probably address that in later parts of the draft. And the later parts of the draft are pretty good for defensive linemen. There are a lot of guys that you can look at, and you're going to find something there that you like. So I think this team is going to need to dip a little bit in there, which there are people out there. I have seen mock drafts that have the Seahawks using their first round pick on a defensive lineman. which I'm really hesitant to do because we just gave all that money to Leonard Williams and we just spent a first round pick on Murphy. But at the same time, I look at it and I go, we need another guy who's good, not just another body. So don't count it out. Like I saw a mock recently that had the Seahawks taking Walter Nolan in the first round, which I'm not a huge fan of that, but on some level I would understand it. So that's the defensive line. It's pretty good. I think that, gun to my head, I'd say it's a little bit below average with the three tech types and a little above average with the nose tackle types, but pretty competitive, pretty close. All right, so that takes us to one of the strengths of the draft in my estimation. I really like the edge crop in this draft. I like it even better than the database does. I think there are probably 5 or 6 legitimate first round picks in this class of edge rushers. I think that all 4 guys they currently have as first round picks are. I think JT probably is. I think Landon Jackson probably is. I think you've got a very strong crop of second rounders here. And even in the third rounders, it remains very thick. I think Josiah Stewart's probably worthy of being a third round pick. I think that there are a bunch of guys here who should probably get a little more credit, like Powell Ryland of Virginia Tech. I like him more than a 5th round pick. This is a very good edge room, and you can see how many guys the database has getting drafted. And I think they might be underselling it just a little bit, even. But this is a great opportunity to increase your edge rusher talent pool. And I'm not saying the Seahawks need it, because you've got Mafe, you've got Hall, and hopefully you've got Nwosu. But you need 4 edge rushers, right? I don't think you're going to be able to get through a season with 3 edge rushers and then 2 warm bodies. You need another guy who's going to be able to get after it. You need to at least go get a guy like a Jadeveon Clowney in free agency, or you need to spend a top 100 pick on an edge rusher that's going to be able to contribute something right away. And we know from experience, edge rushers who are not the blue chippers do not do much as rookies. So I'm telling you right now, if the Seahawks are sitting there in the first round and one of the top 5, maybe even 6 edge rushers get to them, even though it's not necessarily a need, I would not be surprised, and I would not be upset at all if they decide to pick the edge rusher. And if you could get a guy like Princely in the 2nd round, or Mike Green, the Marshall guy, or Donovan Izuruaku in the 2nd round, that's something that you could do and say, he's not going to be great that first year. He's going to be a little more like Boye Mafe was his first year, but he'll play and he'll be productive. He'll be a plus player, even if he's not like an explosive player for you yet. What if you could get a guy like Kyle Kennard in the 3rd round, or Ashton Gilote, the Louisville guy? There's a lot of potential here for the Seahawks to add to their edge room that they don't necessarily need a lot more in, but I think they may end up looking at it like, we are going to need another edge rusher sooner rather than later. It's not like we have a superstar edge rusher, right? We have 3 guys that are good. Let's add another guy who's at least good in there. So I don't mind this at all, and I expect the Seahawks to maybe draft an edge in the top 100. All right, linebacker is pretty weak. As you can see right now, you've got one guy in the first round, Jalen Walker, who's like part-time linebacker, part-time edge rusher anyway. And then there's a handful of day 2 guys. Harold Perkins missed the whole year with an injury. Geod Campbell kind of came out of nowhere in the second half of the year and rocketed up boards. You got Cody Barton's brother. No, I'm not joking about that. It's literally Cody Barton's. It's either his brother or his cousin or something like that, but they're related. And pretty weak. So it is really a blessing that number one, we got Ernest Jones, and number two, Tyrese Knight's good. Now we don't have to push it. If we did not get those two things to go in our favor this season, Knight and Jones, we might be looking at trying to thread the needle on getting an instant impact linebacker in here. And I don't know if we could have done it, right? Like, don't get me wrong, by the way. If we can get Jalen Walker in the first round, I'd still be cool with that. I like Jalen Walker a lot. I think he'd be a lot of fun. Giod Campbell in the second round would be cool. Maybe the fact that Knight and Jones are good gives you the opportunity to draft a Harold Perkins, stash him for a year for him to heal up, and then you get a really, really good player on the other side of it. So there are ways to play this, but we don't have to play it now, which is a relief because it's just a little bit shallow. All right. So that's linebacker. Cornerback is very good, which it usually is. You've got a collection of round one guys, including the number one player in this draft, although that's for as much as anything, it's because he's playing two positions and can probably do a little of both in the NFL. It looked a little bit better before the season started. You had a little bit more going on in that first round, but you can still see you've got first round guys, you've got a bunch of second round guys, got a bunch of round three guys, and even the depth is very, very appealing. And this is definitely a position of strength for the draft. And it's not necessarily something the Seahawks need unless they are looking to move off of Woolen, or at the very least, they're not willing to commit to Woolen beyond next season because of some of the shortcomings that he has and the fact that they're going to have to give Witherspoon a lot of money the year after. So it's not great, but I wouldn't be shocked if they made a play for a top-end cornerback. And as for like nickel cornerback stuff, which is a position where the Seahawks might actually look for something so they can let Witherspoon focus more on the outside, it's okay. I don't see a ton of guys who immediately jump out to me as like being superstar nickel corners. I like Jabbar Muhammad. He was a Husky last year, Duck this year. Jahdae Barron's one of my favorites, but he's kind of a part-time corner, part-time linebacker type. So there are a lot of corners here. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to look at that and go, hey, that's something we need to tap into. Maybe they're good with Woolen. Maybe they're good with just rocking with Witherspoon and Woolen at corner for the next decade. It's possible. Maybe they look at Joby and they go, hey, between these three guys, we're good. And then you've got Nehemiah Pritchett on the come up. Maybe that'll get it done. But this is a very deep position. Finally, safety. It looked better before the season started, but it's still pretty good. We have a stud safety in Starks. For me, Starks is maybe not quite Kyle Hamilton. He's close. Really, really good safety. If the Seahawks have a chance to somehow take him in the first round, I don't think I can say no. And if you have the opportunity to get a guy like a Nickaman Worry in the second round, I don't think you can turn that down either. Even though the Seahawks are not doing badly at the safety spot, I don't think they're so good that they can't use one of their top picks on one. After those two guys, it does thin out pretty quickly. Xavier Watts is a good ball hawk. The Iowa safeties really kind of fell off a cliff after the season started. Both those guys were considered to be top guys at one point. Makuba, I really like Makuba. He didn't catch on as a blue chipper, which I'm not against. More for me, right? If other people don't value him, then I get to value him even more. But the safety position does thin out a little quick, but I think there's some pretty good stuff near the top. So it's a decent safety class. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. So I think that if you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, it's the better side because of how good the edge and cornerback room is. But I will say the linebacker room really drags it down. Like, this is rough. Not much getting around it. All right. I'm going to go and get out of here. That's my bird's eye view of the 2025 NFL Draft on the defense. And from here, we will do more work. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you guys are looking at it. I'll see you guys later today. Go Hawks. Plenty more coming. A lot of draft stuff on the horizon. You guys know what we do around here. You guys know what it's all about.